The story opens with a woman named Victoria who wakes up confused with a headache and notices her wrists bandaged. She also notices pills scattered all over the floor and a strange symbol flickering on the TV. Victoria has no idea about where she is or who she even is, and in the living room, she notices the calendar days marked. Also, there's a picture of her with a man and a separate photo of a little girl whom she assumes to be her daughter. Soon, Victoria experiences faint flashes of memory with her family, but she can't recall much. She then leaves the house and finds people outside, watching and filming her silently. The confused woman begs them for help and pleads to know her identity, but these onlookers just ignore her words. Then, out of nowhere, a man wearing a mask with the same symbol from the TV approaches her with a shotgun. He tries to attack Victoria, forcing her to run for her life while still being recorded by onlookers. Victoria soon reaches a gas station where she meets a woman named Jem, who finally seems normal. The masked man starts shooting at them, so the two women rush inside the gas station, where Jem's friend Damien is also present. They block the entrance, and Jem uses a fire extinguisher to smash the lock on the back door. Moments later, the masked man breaks into the gas station, and Damien tries to stop him by grabbing his legs, but he is brutally shot as onlookers continue recording everything. Meanwhile, the two women manage to escape through the back door and hide from the crowd. They notice Damien bleeding out, during which Victoria experiences more flashes of memory of the man and the little girl from the pictures. Soon, they notice two people wearing bizarre masks and carrying weapons approaching them, so they have no choice but to run again. They arrive at an empty house where Victoria asks Jem why they look like that, and Jem responds that it's just to scare people. Victoria reveals that she has no idea who she is and shows the girl's picture, stating that it could be her daughter. She also explains how she found herself in an unfamiliar house, surrounded by scattered pills, so Jem suggests she might have tried to end her life. Jem then explains that it all started with a bizarre symbol that flashed on every kind of screen. It did something to people, turning them into onlookers who just stand around taking pictures and videos. But a few weren't affected, like those bizarrely masked ones, who decided to become hunters and do whatever they want. Jem also shares that she's planning to shut down a transmission station called White Bear to stop the whole thing. Upon hearing the word White Bear, Victoria suddenly begins recalling the little girl again and panics. But Jem tells her to pull herself together. The two women then leave the house, and Victoria notices a few onlookers laughing and recording her. She throws a brick at them, causing them to run away, during which one of them accidentally drops a phone. Victoria picks up the phone to see what's actually on it, but Jem threatens her with a taser and asks her not to look, saying it's too dangerous. Still, Victoria looks at the phone, and suddenly she sees a flashback of herself with the little girl, a man wearing a hat, and a voice saying, Jemima. Just then, the hunters once again begin approaching, causing the two women to run for their lives. Suddenly, a van stops in front of them, and the driver, Baxter, asks them to get in. The women oblige, and the three drive away, but Victoria feels uneasy and says she has met these two before, though she can't recall clearly. She also predicts that they are going to the woods and will eat, as if she can already see the future. Not long after, they indeed arrive at the woods, where they begin eating and discussing the bizarre situation. But all of a sudden, Baxter suddenly takes out his rifle and holds the two women at gunpoint. He then takes them to a bizarre location, where they see people hanging dead in the middle of the woods, and more onlookers arrive with their phones. It turns out this guy is some kind of psychopath who brings people here to torture and kill them. While Baxter is distracted for a brief moment, Jem manages to run away, and even though he shoots at her, she dodges it. The psycho man then turns his attention to a shaken Victoria, ties her to a log, and begins tormenting her with a drill machine. But before he can actually hurt her, Jem suddenly appears and shoots the man dead with his own gun. She frees Victoria, and the two women hurriedly make their way to the White Bear transmission tower. However, upon their arrival, Victoria begins to see glimpses of her memories and has a very bad feeling about going into the tower. She is reluctant, but Jem drags her in anyway, and they manage to reach the control panel. Victoria notices the bizarre symbol all over the facility and looks confused, while Jem tries to burn the place down. But before they can do anything, the hunters once again arrive, and a fight ensues between them. Jem is badly injured in the chaos, but Victoria grabs one of the hunter's guns and shoots at him. But instead of bullets, the gun unexpectedly erupts with a spray of confetti, leaving her completely stunned. At this moment, a door suddenly opens, and they are led onto a stage where a huge audience is clapping. The hunters, along with Jem, tie Victoria to a chair, which explains the injuries on her wrists. They are then joined by a still-alive Damien and Baxter, and all of them bow before the cheering crowd, while Victoria is left completely confused. In a shocking twist, Baxter informs Victoria of her real name and also shows her a picture of her fiancé, Igien Renok. It turns out the couple kidnapped the same little girl from the picture, whose name was Jemima. Baxter reveals that Victoria recorded her fiancé torturing and killing Jemima, and later, he burned the girl in a sleeping bag in the woods. Furthermore, the white bear was actually Jemima's favorite toy, and the bizarre symbol Victoria had seen everywhere was, in fact, her fiancé's tattoo. After being arrested, Victoria confessed that she was forced to commit such acts by her fiancé, but nobody believed her. During the trial, Ian hanged himself in prison, which enraged people, as they wanted to see him punished. Victoria's punishment now is to have her memories erased daily and to undergo a continuous psychological torment. In reality, there is no apocalypse, and all these people are just actors playing roles to torment her. Upon hearing all this, a horrified Victoria begins crying, but Baxter drags her away as people begin cursing at her. She is brought back to the same house where she woke up, and Baxter puts her in front of the TV so she can watch the video she took of Jemima. Victoria begs to be killed, but Baxter places an electrode on her head to wipe her memory clean. The terrified woman screams for help as the device soon knocks her unconscious. Baxter then throws pills around her, and the team puts everything back in its place downstairs. In the living room, Baxter marks another day on the calendar, a chilling reminder that this has been going on for a long time. The next day, we learn that the entire act is staged at a place called White Bear Justice Park. The episode concludes with Victoria waking up again and being forced to go through the same terrifying ordeal as punishment for her crime and the entertainment of the park's guests. The next story opens in a parking garage where a frightened woman is seen slipping something under the rear tire of a car. She then nervously sends a text to someone and walks away from there. The scene then cuts to a fast food restaurant where we meet a 19-year-old boy, Kenny, who works as a waiter. He's cleaning up a spill when he notices a toy left behind and calls out for a mother and daughter. He returns the toy to the little girl, who sweetly thanks him, and Kenny smiles as he says goodbye. After a long day of work, Kenny returns home and is furious to find that his laptop has locked up because his sister tried to illegally download a bunch of free movies. He scolds her before downloading malware removal software to fix the laptop. Unfortunately, the software turns out to be malware itself, and Kenny doesn't realize that someone is now spying on him through his webcam. A few days later, Kenny is in the living room watching TV with his sister when a group of seductive girls appears on the screen. His sister is too distracted to notice, but Kenny feels uncomfortable and heads to his room. There, he opens his laptop and begins pleasuring himself while watching something on the screen. After he's done, Kenny goes to the bathroom to wash his hands and returns to his laptop. Soon, he receives an anonymous email that says, "We saw what you did," along with the video of him pleasuring himself. Horrified, Kenny quickly covers the camera, but the damage is already done. He soon gets another email demanding his phone number, or the video will be leaked. He nervously shares his number, and the hackers instruct him to keep his location on and his phone battery charged, and they'll let him know when he is activated. This incident leaves Kenny extremely stressed, and he can't focus on anything else in his life. The next morning, he arrives at work looking visibly nervous, and not long after, he receives a text from the hackers saying he has been activated. Now he must reach a location they've provided within 45 minutes, or they will send his video to everyone in his contacts. With no other choice, Kenny makes an excuse of being sick to his superior and quickly rushes to the location on his bicycle. He manages to get there on time, and not long after, a delivery guy arrives on a motorcycle and hands him a package. He even takes a picture of Kenny, after which the terrified boy asks for his help in the situation. But it turns out the man is also a victim, who only tells Kenny to do what they say, and he will be off the hook. After the man leaves, Kenny receives another message saying he must deliver the package to a certain hotel and room number 121. Kenny realizes his bicycle isn't working, so he decides to take a bus and rushes to the destination. On the way, he takes a peek inside the package, and it turns out to be a cake covered in hearts that says, "I love you." Shortly after, Kenny arrives at the hotel and reaches room 121, but the man inside refuses to open the door, insisting he didn't order anything. A desperate Kenny informs the hackers, who instruct him to say, "Mindy sent me." He relays the message, and almost instantly, the man opens the door and lets him in. Afterward, the man, whose name is Hector, asks Kenny who he is and where Mindy is. The terrified boy explains in detail how the hackers are blackmailing him, and even shows Hector the messages. At this moment, Hector also receives a text on his phone and becomes upset, implying that the hackers have managed to blackmail him as well. Kenny wants to leave, but the hackers demand that he take Hector's picture, which he does. Soon, the two of them are tasked with delivering the cake to another location. Hector receives a picture of a license plate, and when they arrive at the parking lot, it turns out to be the car from the beginning of the episode. They find the key under the rear tire, after which they drive to their next destination. On the way, Hector reveals to Kenny that he's a married man with kids, but was seeking some adventure in his life. He found a website with young prostitutes, where he began talking to a woman named Mindy. They exchanged dirty texts and nude pictures before planning to meet at a hotel, but it all turned out to be a scam by the hackers. Hector explains that if this comes out, his wife will divorce him, and he will lose custody of his children, leaving him with no choice but to kill himself. He then asks Kenny what he did, and the boy reveals it was nothing more than a video of him pleasuring himself. A while later, the duo finally arrive at the destination, which turns out to be right in front of a bank. The hackers then instruct them to check the cake. So upon inspecting it, the duo find a gun, a pair of glasses, and a cap. The duo is then told to figure out who will be the driver and who will be the robber. Hector orders Kenny to go inside, and when the boy refuses, he begins pressuring him. He reminds Kenny that if the video gets out, he could be disowned by his family, publicly humiliated, and have his entire reputation destroyed forever. With no other option, Kenny wears the hat and glasses and heads inside the bank while his legs are shaking. He approaches the counter, points his gun, and demands that the staff put money in his bag. The boy is so terrified that he wets his pants in the process. But the terrified staff comply and stuff a large sum of money into his bag. Kenny quickly leaves the bank and gets into the car outside, after which Hector drives them away. Shortly after, the two arrive at an isolated place where Hector is instructed to take the car and destroy it, while Kenny is asked to deliver the money to another location. They say their goodbyes, during which Hector apologizes for being harsh earlier and blames it on the circumstances. The two now go their separate ways, and soon Kenny arrives in the middle of the forest where he finds a man. Kenny tries to hand him the money, but the man stops him and activates a drone camera so the hackers can watch them. In a shocking twist, the man reveals that the hackers have ordered them to fight, and whoever survives will keep the money. Kenny is confused, and he also receives a message demanding that he must fight to the death. The man also turns out to be a victim and admits that if this thing gets out, his life is over. Kenny breaks down crying and says he only looked at some photos, to which the man replies that he did the same. He asks Kenny how young they were, but the boy stays silent. Moments later, Kenny pulls out the gun and points it under his chin. He then tries to shoot himself, only to realize that the gun isn't even loaded. The other man then lunges at Kenny, forcing the terrified boy to run deep into the woods. Sometime later, Hector returns home after finishing his job and receives a troll-face picture from the hackers. He quietly opens his daughter's room door and watches her sleep peacefully. Then he goes to his bedroom and is stunned to see his distraught wife looking at her laptop. She tearfully asks him about Mindy, leaving the man frozen and speechless. Elsewhere, we meet the woman from the opening of the episode, who turns out to be the CEO of a large company. She also receives a troll-face picture from the hackers and thinks the threat is over. But soon, she comes across an article about herself in which her email is leaked and she is accused of being racist. Not far away, we see the delivery guy being confronted by his angry family, revealing that his secret has also been exposed. In the final scene, a bloodied and exhausted Kenny stumbles out of the woods, implying that he has killed the other man. Moments later, he receives the same troll-face picture from the hackers, followed by a call from his distraught mother. She frantically tells him that everyone is talking about the leaked video and begs him to deny it. In a shocking twist, the truth about what Kenny was hiding finally comes to light, explaining why he went to such extremes, even committing robbery and violence, just to protect his secret. Upon hearing this, Kenny feels completely defeated and silently ends the call. As several police cars arrive, the episode ends with the traumatized boy showing no resistance as he's taken into custody. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and watch this video till the end.